From the moment Angela stepped out of her sleek black sedan, she felt a tremble of pride in her chest. The morning sun warmed her shoulders as she took in the tall, pale stone facade of Magnolia Suites. She had dreamed of this moment for years. Every decision she had made, every late night she had spent poring over floor plans, every penny she had set aside from her savings, all of it had led to today. The grand opening of her very own boutique hotel. She smoothed the lapel of her navy blue suit jacket. It fit her perfectly, tailored to her shape and her style. In her right hand she carried a flute of sparkling champagne, its bubbles dancing up to the rim. Her heels clicked softly on the polished stone sidewalk as she approached the double glass doors. She remembered how, just a year ago, this lot had been an empty parking space behind an old diner. Now it held her vision of beauty and welcome. A place where travelers could rest in comfort and find a warm smile at the front desk. Angela paused a moment to let her gaze drift over the glossy black letters spelling Magnolia Suites above the doors. She had chosen that name because magnolias, to her, stood for strength and grace. The magnolia tree in her grandmother's yard had always been full of large white blossoms, even when the storms came. She had learned as a child that real strength meant bending without breaking. That lesson had carried her through her journey from a small apartment office to a proper headquarters in a busy part of town. She tapped her badge, clipped to the inside pocket of her jacket. It bore her name and title, Angela Thompson, founder and CEO. She had designed it herself, imagining guests and staff alike greeting her with respect and warmth. In her mind, she pictured herself stepping inside, exchanging friendly waves, and leading a ribbon-cutting ceremony before guiding a tour through the lobby. But as the doors swung open with a soft whoosh, the scene waiting for her was something completely different. The lobby gleamed under bright lights. Cream-colored marble tiles stretched across the floor, their subtle veins reflecting the glow of crystal chandeliers overhead. Plush armchairs in soft lavender sat in neat clusters near low tables topped with fresh magnolia petals. A grand staircase curved upward to the second floor, its banister carved into smooth waves of dark wood. Scented candles flickered along the edges, filling the air with a gentle hint of jasmine and sandalwood. Angela paused at the threshold and took a deep breath, savoring the mixture of scents and the hush of anticipation. Around her, a handful of staff whispered last-minute instructions. A banquet table along one wall held an array of breakfast treats, fruit, warm croissants, tiny jars of homemade jam. She could see a young server arranging delicate pastries on pink-rimmed plates. Every detail matched her vision down to the last petal of fresh magnolia blossoms arranged in crystal vases. She stepped forward, lifting her chin with confidence. She caught the eye of the assistant manager, a woman in her late 20s wearing a crisp white blouse and a navy vest. The manager's name tag read Marissa. Marissa looked up quickly. Angela introduced herself with a warm smile and offered her hand, expecting a friendly handshake. Instead, Marissa's eyes flicked briefly to the badge on Angela's jacket, then back to Angela's face. A puzzled frown appeared on her forehead. Marissa's lips pressed into a thin line, as if she tried to hide her surprise. Before Angela could speak a single word, Marissa leaned forward, her hand sliding under the reception desk counter. Angela watched as Marissa's fingers pressed a small, hidden button. There was no sound, no warning, but the moment Marissa pressed that button, the atmosphere changed. From the corner of the lobby, 2 stout security officers appeared as if materialized. From thin air, they wore dark navy uniforms and held their hands folded at their waists. One locked eyes on Angela with a steady, unreadable expression. The other gave a curt nod to Marissa before stepping forward. Angela felt a sudden tightening in her chest. She still stood perfectly straight, her back tall, but her heart pounded in her ears. "Ma'am," one of the guards said, his voice low but firm. "I'm afraid you have to step aside." "I'm Angela Thompson," she said, lifting her voice so others could hear. "I'm the owner and CEO of Magnolia Suites." The guard's face remained a blank mask. "I need to see your credentials." Angela lifted her chin and opened her jacket pocket. She pulled out her badge, the gold letters catching a ray of light. She held it out toward the guard. The badge glinted, showing her name clearly. The guard took the badge without a word. He turned it this way and that, squinting as if he tried to spot a forgery. Angela could see his breath quicken for a moment, but his expression did not soften. He handed the badge back to her and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. You need to wait outside while we check with headquarters." Not tightened in Angela's stomach. Marching back outside had never crossed her mind. She took a step forward. "Wait here. I have a meeting with the staff in 5 minutes. This is my hotel." The guard held up a firm palm. "I'm sorry. You need to step outside now." Angela's voice rose with shock and hurt. "Outside? You're removing me from my own lobby? I built this place with my own hands." The security guard did not let her finish. He took a single step forward. Angela could feel the heat of embarrassment rise in her cheeks as a few guest-surly VIPs invited to the opening turned toward her. A tall woman in a summer dress stopped beside her, eyebrows raised. A man in a business suit looked on with confusion. Angela tried again to explain, but the guard laid a hand gently but firmly on her forearm. It was not rough, but it was insistent. She felt a spark of indignation flare in her chest. She drew back her arm quickly. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice quivering. "I'm the CEO." The guard did not break eye contact, simply nodded toward the lobby doors. "Please step outside." Then he turned and walked back to stand near the entrance, leaving Angela exactly where he wanted her. Blood rushed in Angela's ears as she turned and crossed the threshold back onto the sidewalk. The bright morning light felt harsh after the soft glow of the lobby. She paused on the top step and steadied herself. She might have been able to calm the gesture as a misunderstanding, maybe the assistant manager had never seen her before and thought she was a trespasser. But in her heart, she knew it was more than that. The security guard's refusal to believe her title. The cold way the desk manager had hidden behind an alarm button. It all spoke of a deeper problem. Angela took a moment to let the breeze cool her face. She looked back toward the glass doors. Through the tinted windows, she could see the receptionist watching her from behind the desk. Her eyes wide, but her stance confident. A small group of guests hovered near a potted palm tree, whispering among themselves. One elderly man nudged his wife and pointed toward Angela. They both leaned forward, curiosity etched on their faces. Angela lifted her phone from her jacket pocket and dialed one of her closest advisors at corporate. She stood with her back to the street, leaning slightly on the banister of the front stairs. She looked at her phone screen as it rang. She could feel the tension in her shoulders, but she forced herself to stand tall. We would not let this break her confidence. Not today. As she waited for her call to connect, she remembered every challenge she had overcome to get here. The bank loans she had negotiated when other lenders had laughed at her plans. The contractor who tried to take advantage of her inexperience. The nights she spent alone in her new office, reworking marketing plans until the small hours of the morning. All those moments had led to her taking this step, to opening the doors of Magnolia Suites. She cleared her throat and squared her shoulders. Even as the guard remained visible through the window, she refused to let doubt creep in. She would prove that she belonged here and that no one could take that away from her. With her phone pressed to her ear, Angela prepared to turn this moment of shock into a moment of action. She would call her regional director. She would show them the proof. And she would walk back inside as the rightful leader of her own hotel. And if anyone stood in her way, she would make sure they understood that this place was hers and that she would never be turned away again. Within seconds of Marissa's silent alarm, 2 security guards appeared around the corner of the reception desk. They walked with heavy, measured steps and wore crisp navy uniforms that seemed out of place in the soft, candlelit lobby. Angela felt a sudden chill, even though the morning sunlight shone through the glass doors behind the guards. The taller guard stopped a few feet from her, arms folded across his chest. The shorter one stood by the desk, watching Angela closely. She swallowed hard. "Ma'am," the taller guard said, his voice flat and businesslike, "please step aside. You are not allowed beyond this point." Angela lifted her chin. "I'm the owner and CEO," she said, holding out her badge. "My name is Angela Thompson. I founded Magnolia Suites. I have every right to be here. The guard did not move. Instead, he glanced at Marissa, whose face was pale, and her eyes flicked between Angela and her unseen supervisor. Marissa shook her head slightly. The guard turned back to Angela. I need to verify your identity. Step back, please. As Angela hesitated, the shorter guard reached for her arm. His large hand settled on her elbow, pressing firmly but not roughly. Felt a flash of embarrassment and anger. She withdrew her arm quickly. Don't touch me, she said, voice trembling. I am the CEO. I built this place. The guard took a small step away, but kept his gaze fixed on her. I just need you to wait here while we check with headquarters. Angela looked around. At the guests in the lobby, a few whispered among themselves, watching her like a curious audience. A woman wearing a bright floral dress stood near a cluster of armchairs and whispered to her companion, pointing subtly at Angela. A businessman with a camera slung around his neck raised an eyebrow. Their eyes made Angela feel like a shark in an aquarium on display, judged, trapped. She took a steady breath and squared her shoulders. She could feel her heart pounding, but she would not let it show. She met the taller guard's eyes. I won't move until you call someone who knows who I am, she said in a low but firm voice. Call my assistant, my lawyer, anyone. You will not keep the owner of this hotel out in the lobby. The guard's jaw tightened. I've already called our regional office. Please wait. He turned and spoke into a small radio clip to his vest. The soft crackle of his voice was the only sound for a moment. Angela watched him. She peeled the badge off her jacket and held it closer to his face, as if he might see the gold lettering. Better. He glanced at it once more, then clipped his radio off. Marissa hovered by the desk, wringing her hands. Angela noticed her uniform skirt was too tight around the hips, making her look uncomfortable. The assistant manager's name tag read Marissa Chen. Angela tried to imagine what was running through Marissa's mind. Was she afraid, confused, or simply following orders without thinking? She wanted to reach out and say, "You can put the alarm down." But the fear in Marissa's eyes told her that simple words might not help. The lobby felt suddenly colder. The soft scent of jasmine in the air now seemed perfumed with tension. Angela's gaze drifted to the grand staircase and the rows of doors leading to the guest rooms. She had chosen every piece of wood, every paint color, every light fixture herself. It felt like someone had drawn a line in the sand, denying her authority in her own creation. A clicking sound came from the desk. Marissa had her phone in hand. Angela assumed she was texting the regional director. She saw Marissa's fingers move quickly over the screen. Then Marissa pressed send and looked at Angela with an apologetic expression. The guard spoke into his radio again. Moments passed like hours. Angela felt her breath catch in her throat. She thought of her family, who had supported her through every step of this journey. I thought of her grandmother, whose magnolia tree still bloomed in her backyard. She thought of every late night she had spent alone in that small apartment. Office. Each memory anchored her. She refused to be shaken. Finally, the guard nodded toward the double doors. Sir, the regional director is on the way. If you step outside, we can talk there. Angela shook her head. I will not leave until I know what is happening inside. My reputation, my hotel, my guests, they all deserve a clear answer. I want to be treated with respect. He studied her for a moment, then signaled to his partner. The two of them stood back, forming a human barrier in front of the entrance to the inner lobby. Marissa peered around them, her mouth moving silently as if she wanted to speak, but dared not. Angela turned her eyes to the guests again. She offered them a small, sad smile. I'm sorry, everyone, she said quietly. This isn't how I wanted today to begin. A few guests whispered words of support. One elderly couple stepped forward. The woman said, Are you okay, dear? Angela's heart warmed at their kindness. She nodded quietly. The man in the suit shook his head, looking at the guards in surprise. The smaller guard cleared his throat. Please allow us to resume. Check-in? You can return shortly. Angela clenched and unclenched her fists, reminding herself to stay calm. She went to the steps leading to the sidewalk and sat on the edge. Her heels hovered over the marble threshold. Outside, the air smelled of city traffic and coffee from a nearby cafe. She took off her right shoe and rubbed her heel. A small ache reminded her she had been standing too long. She pulled out her phone and dialed her personal line to the regional office. It rang twice before a sleepy voice answered. "This is Marcus." "Marcus, this is Angela," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "I need your help right now. I'm being prevented from entering my own lobby by my staff and security. I showed them my badge, but they refused to believe me. Send someone or tell them to let me in." There was a pause. Angela could hear rustling papers in the background. "Angela, are you serious? You? Your staff kicked you out?" "Yes," she said simply. Marissa hit an alarm under the desk. 2 guards came and escorted me out. "I'm waiting here in front of the entrance." Marcus cleared his throat. "This has to be a mistake. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Just stay calm. And don't do anything rash." "Thank you," Angela said, ending the call. She slipped her phone into her pocket and looked up at the lobby doors. The guards still stood firm. Marissa had moved back into the receptionist chair, hands folded in her lap. Her eyes were red, as though she might cry. Angela wished she could comfort her. But she knew this was bigger than personal feelings. It was a deep error that threatened the reputation of Magnolia Sweets. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought of why she had built this hotel, not for power or prestige, but to create a safe, welcoming space for travelers. She thought of every guest she hoped to comfort, every weary traveler she needed to greet with a smile. She refused to let one misunderstanding ruin everything. She stood and brushed the dust from her skirt. Angela squared her shoulders. She would face whoever came next with dignity. She might be outside the lobby doors now, but soon she would walk back inside as the rightful CEO, and when she did, she would make sure that everyone here understood one simple truth. Respect and kindness are not optional. They are the foundation of every good business, and they start with how you treat every person who walks through your door. And with that thought in her heart, Angela waited ready to reclaim her place. Angela stepped off the last marble stair and planted both feet firmly on the sidewalk. The warm morning air felt sharper here, carrying the sounds of honking cars, distant chatter, and the rhythmic hum of city buses. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the crisp air, then let it out slowly. Her heart still hammered, and her palms felt damp against her skirt. She folded her arms across her chest and looked back at the glass doors of Magnolia Suites. Through the tinted windows, she could see the receptionist's rigid posture, the guards standing guard like silent sentinels. A knot tightened in her stomach, but she refused to let it show on her face. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. A few curious onlookers leaned against parked cars, whispering softly to each other. An older man in a fedora tipped his hat and gave her a sympathetic nod. A young couple paused on their morning walk, the woman clutching a reusable coffee cup. They glanced between Angela and the entrance, confusion in their eyes. A newspaper carrier stepped back on his bicycle to get a better look. Angela met each pair of eyes with calm, even though inside she felt the sting of embarrassment and anger. She reached into her jacket pocket and retrieved her phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed the number for her regional director's office. She pressed call and held the phone to her ear, listening to the ringing tone. Each ring echoed in her chest like a drumbeat. Finally, a groggy voice answered. "Good morning, this is Marcus," said the voice on the other end. "Marcus. It's Angela," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. She glanced up at the hotel sign, where the words Suites gleamed. "In the sunlight, I need your help right away. My staff just removed me from the lobby of my own hotel." There was a pause. On the sidewalk, Angela could hear traffic and also the hush that fell over the small crowd as they strained to listen. A soft breeze rustled the leaves of a nearby tree. After a moment, Marcus spoke again, sounding more alert. "You're joking?" he said. "Angela, you're not still outside, are you?" "I am." Marissa hit an alarm under the desk, and 2 guards came in. They wouldn't let me stay. They said they needed to verify my identity. Took my badge, and now I'm standing out here waiting for someone to fix this. I'll be there in 10 minutes, Marcus said, his voice gaining authority. Just try to stay calm, okay? I'll call the guards and Marissa on the way over. Angela closed her eyes for a moment and nodded, though Marcus could not see her. She held the line open while she mulled over her next steps. She thought back to when she first dreamed of Magnolia Suites. She had wanted a sanctuary for weary travelers, a place where each guest would feel seen and respected. Against a deep green canopy, that tree was a symbol of endurance and beauty in her childhood neighborhood. That memory made her cheeks warm with determination. She opened her eyes and said softly, "Thank you, Marcus. Please hurry." "I'm on my way," he replied, before hanging up. Angela ended the call and slipped her phone back into her pocket. She straightened her jacket and smoothed down the front of her skirt. She took in a steadying breath and turned her attention back to the street scene. A delivery truck rumbled past, its driver glancing at her as if wondering what had happened inside. The young couple moved on, still whispering. The man in the fedora adjusted his bag on his shoulder and tipped his hat again in a silent show of support. These small gestures reminded her that kindness still existed out here. Even when her own staff had failed her, she walked a few steps down the sidewalk to give herself space from the entrance, then stopped and leaned against a lamppost. She closed her eyes and tried to calm her racing thoughts. She pictured her grandmother's magnolia tree again and remembered the feeling of cool shade under its branches on a hot day. She thought about the late nights in her apartment office, surrounded by architectural sketches and financial projections. She recalled the moment she signed the final paperwork on the property, when her bank manager smiled and said, "Congratulations, Ms. Thompson. You're a hotel owner now." At that moment, she had felt invincible. Now she felt betrayed. A gentle tap on her shoulder brought her back to the present. She turned to see the elderly man in the fedora standing beside her. He offered her a small paper coffee cup. "You might like a pick-me-up," he said kindly. "You look like you could use it." Angela's throat tightened. She accepted the cup with both hands. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. "That means a lot." He nodded and stepped back. Melting into the morning crowd, Angela took a sip of the hot coffee. The warmth spread through her chest and reminded her that she was not alone. People in this city still cared. She placed the cup in her jacket pocket and set her jaw. When Marcus arrived, she would be ready. Moments later, she spotted a black SUV pulling up at the curb. The tinted windows slid down to reveal Marcus in a crisp suit. He climbed out, scanning the scene. He walked over to her and spoke quietly into his phone as he approached. Angela watched his expression shift from confusion to concern. When he ended the call, he turned and faced her. "Angela, I'm so sorry," he said. "I've instructed security to stand down, and I'm sending Marissa out to talk with you." Angela nodded, relief flooding her. She followed him back toward the lobby entrance. The guards moved aside as instructed, and Marissa stepped out in a trembling walk. Her eyes were red and puffy, as though she had been on the verge of tears. Angela took a deep breath, determined to speak with compassion, even as her own feelings burned. "Marissa." Angela began, using her name to remind the young manager that this was still her hotel and her decision. "I need to know why you did this. Why did you set off the alarm when you saw me?" Marissa's gaze dropped to the sidewalk. She twisted the hem of her uniform shirt between her fingers. "I'm sorry," she said softly. I thought you were someone else. We weren't expecting you yet, and when I saw someone come in without checking in at the desk, I panicked. The security protocol says to hit the alarm if there's any doubt." Angela uncrossed her arms and reached out, but stopped herself. She had every right to be upset, but she also wanted to understand. "Marissa, every staff member here has been trained to recognize me. You have my face on a slideshow. You have my badge design in our employee handbook. Why was there doubt?" Marissa swallowed. I don't know. I guess I was nervous. This is my first day as assistant manager, and I wanted everything to go perfectly. I've been under so much pressure from corporate to deliver a flawless opening. When I saw someone I didn't expect, I panicked." Angela's expression softened. Marissa sounded overwhelmed. But she also knew that fear and inattention could hurt the hotel's reputation. She squared her shoulders and nodded slowly. I understand that this is your first big day, and I appreciate how hard you've worked, but panic under pressure is exactly what we train against. Our values demand respect and trust. Trust each other to know who belongs here. Marissa blinked, tears glistening. I'm so sorry. Never meant to embarrass you or cause trouble. What can I do to fix this? Angela looked past Marissa at the lobby doors and the guests peeking through the windows. Right now, we need to restore confidence in our guests and our team. I want you to apologize to everyone here, and then I want you to organize a quick staff meeting in the conference room upstairs. We'll go over the identity protocol again, make sure every person on duty knows who I am and what to do if there's uncertainty. And Marissa, Angela added, placing a hand gently on her arm. Take a moment to catch your breath and center yourself. You'll do better when you're calm. Marissa nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for giving me a chance. Angela offered her a small, encouraging smile. We all make mistakes. What matters is how we respond. Let's go back inside together. This is still your hotel, too. You just need to lead it with confidence. Together, they re-entered the lobby. Guests looked up as they walked past, some offering supportive smiles. Angela raised her hand in greeting, and a few people returned the gesture. As she reached the reception desk, she felt the familiar soft glow of the chandeliers and the scent of magnolia petals. For a moment, she paused and let herself feel at home again. She knew there would be more challenges ahead. But today's misunderstanding had become an opportunity to reinforce the values she had built her hotel upon, and to remind her team that true strength shows in calm confidence, respect, and clear communication. And with that, Angela Thompson, founder and CEO of Magnolia Suites, took her place once more at the heart of her creation. 5 minutes later, Angela felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see Marcus, the regional director, by her side. His sharp suit and calm expression brought a rush of relief. Behind him, 2 corporate security staff carried a small camera and a tablet. The guards at the lobby doors stepped aside without a word. Marissa stood back, her eyes wide. As Angela and Marcus walked toward the entrance together, as Angela crossed the threshold, the familiar hush of the lobby greeted her. The soft glow of the chandeliers and the gentle scent of magnolia petals seemed to welcome her home. Guests paused in their conversations and turned to watch as their CEO, the very woman behind Magnolia Suites, strode confidently back inside. Angela held her head high, her shoulders straight. She met each pair of curious eyes with a small, assured smile. She had been pushed out, but now she was reclaiming her place. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen twice, nodded to the security staff, and handed the tablet to Angela. She saw the screen light up with the lobby surveillance video. The timestamp showed it all. Angela walking in, Marissa leaning down, her hand activating a hidden alarm under the desk. Then 2 guards appearing as if by magic, their firm hands guiding Angela back outside.
Ow.
Every moment was clear, undeniable. Angela took a steadying breath and turned to face the staff gathered behind the reception desk. The assistant manager had backed away to one side, her face pale. The 2 guards hovered near the entrance, their expressions unreadable. A small crowd of guests stood behind velvet ropes, watching in silence. Angela lifted the tablet so everyone could see. The video played out again, her badge pressed forward, the guards ignoring it, her arm gently pushed away. She lowered the tablet and let her gaze sweep slowly across the room. No one interrupted the hush. No one dared hide their eyes. The faint click of cameras from the corporate security crew sounded in the background. Angela felt a surge of power, tempered by calm resolve. She spoke in a clear, firm voice. I am the founder and CEO of Magnolia Suites, she said. My name is Angela Thompson. This is my hotel. Her words echoed slightly off the marble floor. 5 minutes ago, I was shown out of my own lobby by the people who work here. That moment, caught on camera, shows a failure not just of security protocol, but a breach of trust, respect, and dignity. She paused. A hush hung heavy in the air. Even the soft hum of the elevators seemed to fade away. Angela took another breath. We built this hotel on values. One, that every guest and every team member deserves respect. Two, that we treat each other with kindness and understanding. And three, that we trust the people who belong here. Today, those values were ignored. Angela set the tablet on the reception counter. She felt no bitterness in her voice. Instead, she felt the quiet strength that had carried her from her grandmother's home. Through countless challenges to this moment of leadership, she walked toward the reception desk and addressed the two guards first. You, she said, looking at the taller guard. You refused to believe my identity even when I showed you my badge. You told me to leave. Want to hear from you why. You ignored our training. The guard's face was unreadable, but he cleared his throat. Ma'am, I followed the instructions I was given. If there was any doubt, I had to secure the area. His voice was low and even. Angela nodded once. Securing the area is important, but so is taking a moment to verify the facts. Failed to look at the identification in my hand. You failed to call your supervisor. Instead, you sent me out on my own property. That is not how we do things. Here, she turned to the shorter guard. And you, she continued softly, you used force on me when I asked you not to touch me. That was unnecessary and wrong. Our staff must learn to handle situations with calm respect, especially when they involve a senior leader or a guest. Both guards lowered their eyes. Angela stepped back and turned to the staff at the reception desk. She looked each one in the eye as she spoke. Marissa, you set off that alarm without thinking. You panicked. I understand that this is a new role for you, and you felt pressure on opening day. But panic leads to mistakes. You had clear instructions in your training materials. You were taught to confirm identity with the manager on duty, or to call security only if you identified a real threat. You did neither. Instead, you triggered an alarm and embarrassed me in front of our guests. That cannot happen again. Marissa's lips trembled. She nodded, her eyes glistening. Angela softened her tone just a fraction. I know you care deeply about this place. You want to do well, but caring is not enough. Confidence, training, and common sense matter too. Me, you greet me as the CEO. When a guest arrives, you help them. If you're unsure, you ask. You do not panic. Angela raised her voice just enough to be heard clearly by everyone in the lobby. And to all of you, she continued, this day taught us a lesson. Magnolia Suites belongs to many people. To our guests, to our staff, and to our community. None of us is above our values. Today our values were tested and some of you failed that test. She walked slowly down the length of the reception area, making sure her words reached every pair of eyes. When she reached the end, she took a deep breath. Because of these actions, and because respect and trust are the foundation of what we do, I am sorry to say that everyone on duty this morning is relieved of their positions, effective immediately. The words rang out. A few gasps echoed from the guests. The young bellhop's jaw dropped. The two guards looked at each other in shock. Marissa put a hand to her mouth. The entire lobby fell silent. Angela continued, her voice steady. I know this sounds harsh, but when a leader is pushed out of her own lobby, our own team treats her as a trespasser, we must take action to rebuild trust. We will close. For a brief time to retrain our staff, to hire new team members who share our commitment to respect, kindness, and clear communication. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. She could see the understanding dawning in some faces, guests nodding, the corporate security team scribbling notes. Angela felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness that her staff had failed her. Relief that she was doing what was right, as your CEO, she said, her voice warm now. I promise to lead this hotel back to the welcoming, respectful place I dreamed it would be. I will work alongside each of you to rebuild our team. We'll train on how to treat every person with dignity, how to listen first and verify second, and how to uphold the values that define Magnolia Suites. Angela set her hand on the reception counter and looked out at the lobby one last time. Saw genuine respect in the eyes of her guests. She saw determination in the corporate security staff. She saw remorse in the faces of her former team. She knew she could turn this mistake into an opportunity. As of today, she said softly, we start anew. We will return to our core values, and we will be stronger for it, she offered. A confident smile that reached her eyes. The guests broke into polite applause. The corporate team nodded in approval. Even Marissa, tears in her eyes, offered a small, hopeful smile. Angela turned to Marcus and the camera crew. Thank you for capturing the truth, she said. This video will remind us all of why respect and trust matter every day. And now, she added with gentle firmness, let's get to work. With that, she led her team toward the conference. Rooms upstairs, ready to rebuild Magnolia Suites from the ground up. She knew there would be long hours ahead, tough conversations, and a mountain of training to schedule. But she also knew that today's decisive action would shape a better future for her hotel, her guests, and her community. And as she walked away from the lobby, she felt the steady beat of her own heart, strong, proud, and unwavering in its commitment to the values she held dear. ChatGPT said, by sunset, the lobby of Magnolia Suites had emptied of its morning bustle. The crystal chandeliers glowed softly over an almost empty marble floor. Angela stood near the reception desk, looking out through the tall glass doors at the street below. She pulled her navy blue jacket tighter around her shoulders as a breeze drifted in. In the last few hours, she had met with community leaders, retrained returning staff, and started interviewing new candidates to rebuild her team. Now, as the last of the housekeeping staff carried a cart of fresh linens down the hallway, she allowed herself a moment to reflect. Just a few hours earlier, she had announced that everyone on duty that morning would be relieved of their duties. Many of those team members had left before sunset, heads bowed but shoulders squared. Some had sent messages of apology and asked how they could make amends. A few had shown up to help tidy the lobby before going home. Angela believed in second chances, but she also believed in accountability. She had told them they could reapply after completing a special training program she personally designed. One focused on respect, recognition, and clear communication. A gentle knock sounded at the door to her temporary office, a small room overlooking the lobby with a single window. Angela turned to see Marcus standing in the doorway, his crisp suit replaced by a more casual shirt and slacks. He held a stack of paper staff resumes, training schedules, and the community partnership proposal. He smiled tiredly. The final interview going? He asked, stepping inside. Angela tucked a lock of hair behind her ear. I'm meeting with Mrs. Delgado in 5 minutes. She runs the local hospitality school. I want to partner with her to bring in well-trained interns, maybe even turn this into a training site for future hoteliers. She motioned to the papers on the desk. I've drafted the agreement. I want her to see that Magnolia Suites isn't just a hotel. It's a place for learning and growth. Marcus nodded approvingly. That's brilliant. She'll love it. And I heard the press release went out. People are already talking about our retraining program, good, Angela said, leaning back in her chair. This is bigger than one mistake. It's a chance to reshape our culture for the better. The knock sounded again. This time, it was the new head of housekeeping, a gentle man named Samuel. He had been with the hotel for 2 years and was one of the few staff members retained after today's reshuffle because he had intervened politely when the confrontation happened. He stood in the doorway, holding a clipboard. Miss Thompson, he said respectfully, we're ready to close for the day. All rooms have fresh linens and the public areas are set for tomorrow's reopening. He smiled. The new green uniforms arrived too. They looked sharp. Angela stood and smoothed her skirt. Thank you, Samuel. I appreciate your help. Today, please send everyone home with our thanks. We'll start again fresh in the morning. Samuel nodded and left quietly. Angela watched him go, then turned her gaze out the window. The streetlights had come on and the signs of nearby shops glowed. In the distance, she could see the magnolia trees that lined the sidewalk in front of the local park. Their petals glimmered in the early evening light, reminding her of the symbol she had chosen for her hotel in the first place. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment. Today had been hard. She had faced embarrassment, anger, and disappointment. Just her own, but from her guests and community. Yet through it all, she had kept her calm and stood by her values. She believed that leadership meant owning mistakes, taking action, and guiding people toward growth. That belief had guided her through every challenge since she had first dreamed of Magnolia Suites. Outside, footsteps approached. Angela opened her eyes to see Mrs. Delgado standing at the door, a friendly woman in her 50s wearing a chic blazer. Behind her stood 2 students from the hospitality school, carrying portfolios and hopeful expressions. "Good evening, Miss Thompson," Mrs. Delgado said, extending her hand. "Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited about this partnership." Angela shook her hand warmly. "Thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." She motioned to 2 chairs by the window. "Let me tell you what I have in mind. Our past in a blur of ideas and plans. Angela and Mrs. Delgado discussed creating a Magnolia Academy program and on-site training course combining classroom instruction and real-world practice. The 2 students shared their dreams of careers in hospitality, and Angela encouraged them to apply for internships once the partnership was official. When Mrs. Delgado left, she hugged Angela and said, "You're making something special here. I can't wait to get started." As the night deepened, Angela found herself alone in the lobby for the first time since morning. She walked through the empty reception area, running her hand across the cool wood of the desk. She paused by one of the lavender armchairs and sat down. The calm scent of magnolia petals filled the air. In moments like this, she could see her dream clearly, a hotel that felt like home, where every guest and staff member was treated with respect and care. She checked her phone. Messages of support had trickled in kind words from guests who had arrived after the morning incident. Local business owners offering help, and even some former staff members expressing regret. One message read, "We know who you are. You're a leader who stands for something." Another said, "Thank you for showing us what real respect looks like." Angela's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. She typed a quick reply, "Thank you for believing? We're just getting started." She stood, smoothing her dress, and glanced at the clock. It was nearly 9 o'clock. She decided to take a quick walk around the nearby block for fresh air before heading home. She locked the front door behind her and stepped onto the sidewalk. The streets were quiet now, lit by street lamps and moonlight. Savoring the scent of magnolias from the trees overhead. As she walked, she thought about tomorrow's reopening. She would welcome new staff in green uniforms, interns from the academy, guests who booked their stays after hearing about her decisive actions. She would greet them with the same warm smile she had planned for this morning. Only this time, there would be no misunderstandings. Angela stopped beneath one of the magnolia trees and looked up at the white blossoms. She reached out and gently touched a petal. It felt soft and delicate, yet firm. She smiled at the image of herself as a young girl, watching her grandmother feed magnolia petals to hummingbirds in the backyard. In her grandmother's stories, magnolias represented true grace under pressure. She straightened and continued her walk, her footsteps light. As she rounded the corner, she saw a small group gathered outside a cafe. They waved and cheered softly when they recognized her. A young barista called out, "Good luck tomorrow, Ms. Thompson?" She returned the wave and said, "Thank you. See you in the morning." When she reached her car, she felt a quiet sense of triumph. Today had tested her resolve, but she had remained strong. She had turned a crisis into a catalyst. For positive change, Magnolia Suites would emerge stronger, its foundation renewed. She climbed into her car, smiled at her reflection in the rearview mirror, and started the engine. As she drove home under the starlit sky, she felt the promise of tomorrow fill her with hope. She knew challenges lay ahead, training schedules to finalize, new hires to guide, community partnerships to nurture, but she also knew she had the heart and vision to lead her hotel to success. And in the soft glow of the dashboard, lights, Angela Thompson, founder and CEO of Magnolia Suites, felt the steady beat